My friend was trying to understand. We were at a Clarice Beckett exhibition together. He was there because his wife wanted to be there, but he was trying to get something out of it anyway. Then the question, why has she painted these pictures so blurry? Maybe it's our digital world now. Our cameras with 24 megapixels and $1,000 lenses. The sense of wonder we might get when we see a bird's wing up really close. New insights, all good stuff. But in all of this, have we lost how we actually see? How we perceive the real world we inhabit? Because Clarice Beckett's Wet Evening is a real moment. Something with which we can readily connect. We recognise the fuzzy trees, the grey reflected sheen on the road, the single tail light reflecting off the wet road, the grey skies, the distant oncoming headlights, the water gurgling down the gutters creating a muddy pool around an obstacle. Nothing is missing, nothing is added. We recognise all of this quickly because it's what we see on a wet night on a wet road. Clarice Beckett was an Australian artist, barely recognised in her own time, but in the midst of a bit of a renaissance here in Australia. Her name will draw crowds, as they did to the Geelong Gallery, where my friend asked about the blurry pictures. Beckett was prolific. Unfortunately, over 1,000 of her works have been lost. Her own father, for whom she was the chief caregiver, destroyed many works out of ignorance, thinking them unfinished. Ouch. Today she's recognised as one of Australia's greatest artists. Her paintings readily recognisable and loved for what has been described as their radical simplicity. If you're going to put her work into a genre, it would be Australian tonalism. Australian tonalism arose out of the theories of Max Meldrum. No, not that Meldrum. Max Meldrum. I'm slowly working up a video about him. But in short, Meldrum developed his own theory of painting, the science of appearances, in which he argued that painting is purely a matter of optical analysis, and that artists should work towards an exact illusion of spatial depth by carefully observing the tone and tonal relationships in front of them. Paint what you see. That the colours and tones of a real scene are not going to lie. That we therefore don't need to know about perspective lines, understand atmospheric changes to colour, or the standard form of, say, a face. Rather, we just paint exactly what is in front of us, without having to know the mechanics by which the scene exists. We also don't need to draw a scene and then paint over the drawing. In fact, drawing onto the canvas only serves to limit our true perception. Meldrum was certainly controversial, and many today, on hearing that an initial drawing is to be avoided, seem shocked that paintings can even be constructed without this step. I can't stress enough how different this is to the idea most of us have in our heads about how art is constructed, particularly if you're not an artist. We may have learned that Leonardo da Vinci dissected bodies so that he could fully understand how to draw and understand the muscles under the skin. This is the school of thinking that says we need to understand the physics of an object, the vanishing points of a scene, the proportions of a body, and so on, before we dare commit such objects to paint. But cameras do an okay job of representing reality, and they don't do any of that. Each point on the camera's sensor simply records the level of light and colour reaching that spot. Artists too realise this well before photography made that obvious. Because it turns out we do not need to know what the objects being painted actually are. Treat them as shapes. Claude Monet said, "Forget what objects you have before you, a tree, a house, a field, or whatever. Merely think, here is a little square of blue, here an oblong of pink, here a streak of yellow, and paint it just as it looks to you, the exact colour and shape." He makes it sound so easy. Monet realised that if you think of the object, you might start painting the object instead of what you see. You might paint, say, a train in a station instead of the reality of atmospheric effects as a train arrives at a station. If you don't think you're painting a train, you can concentrate on the various shapes and effects before you, and you need not fear, for the train will appear out of that work. Painting this way, a shadow is just as important as the object that casts it. A cloud of steam may obscure what you consider to be the subject, but far better represents the reality of what we see. And all parts of a scene are better not named, but rather simply expressed as shapes in paint. In fact, this is something you could equally do painting upside down, turning your canvas the other way round. Which is indeed one of the exercises I have been encouraged to do, at least for part of a painting session. It's fascinating how easy this is and how it helps you resolve difficulties attached to trying to paint a correct object. This way of looking is what Clarice Beckett's teacher, Max Meldrum, saw as a science. He was not interested in, say, painting the soul of a person, as some artists may convince themselves they are doing, but rather in painting the exact differences in tones and colour directly in front of him. Back to Clarice. Clarice Beckett died in 1935 after catching pneumonia from one of her wet outdoor painting sessions. Her dedication cost her. Her determination to show the world as it is one of the hallmarks of her work. It creates a dreamy nostalgia now, as we see some scenes now gone, and others we still recognise. Beckett's sea scenes are similarly evocative, taking us to places that comfortably sit with our understanding of reality, not as a camera represents it, with everything in sharp focus, or even with a camera's bokeh effect, where one object is sharp and everything else is blurred. No, none of that, rather in fact how we actually see naturally. For this reason, Beckett's paintings are relaxing. We are not fighting to understand, nor are we marvelling at a sharply expressed scene, somehow in focus at every point. Instead, we are experiencing a moment with her, a real moment, not one curated for us to be saying, "Here is my artwork, please marvel at my skill," because we are sharing the same moment, Clarice and me. Not with Ms. Beckett trying hard to impress me, but with her faithfully reproducing the real world, the world we actually experience. My friend's question about why was the painting blurry would never have been asked if he had instead been sitting in a car on a wet night with the fog rolling in, because this is what he would have seen. It's interesting that our expectations have become warped from this reality, maybe from all the photography we see. And our expectations of a painting today are even more pronounced. We either want photographic realism, see what I did there, or abstract impressionism, and everything in between. When someone tells you your painting has photographic reality, they mean it as a compliment. But is this the point of art? Can't we do better than photography? Can't we move towards a true perception of the world as we actually experience it? Big questions. Clarice Beckett did that. She takes us together on a shared experience of a wet night, one we all recognise. There's the soft outline of a car ahead, with one of its tail lights not working. A distant car creates a double halo of light. The rain has filled the air with fog, water gushes around us, and the trees impinge on every side. I've been there. I get it. Thanks, Clarice. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. You know, Clarice Beckett was only 48 when she died. A timely reminder to get on with it. I've got a few videos stewing away in my head at the moment. The Max Meldrum one will be fun when I get it all down. I'm also thinking about speaking about what it's like to become an artist later in life, if anyone is interested in hearing about that. All right, see you next time on Art Meets Geoff. As they did to the Geelong to the Geelong Gallery. Not with Miss Beckett trying to.